If Chris Pratt's Star-Lord died on the way out of the building, the way he was out of the building, like he's going back for the Zune, it's like that's true to his character. It's true to his character that he truly believes that he's gonna get out of every situation, and this time he just doesn't. My heart dropped. I was like, oh, they killing Star-Lord. Wow, this is bold. And then you see that finger come into the frame, and it's like, what's good, good people? Welcome to Whole Views. Thank you for clicking that thumbnail. My name is Corey, and today we are talking Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 spoilers, right? So this is gonna be the full spoiler video. We are not wasting any time with introductions and explaining how things go. I'm talking about the movie in deep detail, specific events, things I like, things I didn't like. Let's jump right into it. This is not a complaint because I don't have much to complain about in regards to this movie. I almost want to give it a perfect 10, but when I tabulate, you can check the description, you can see the numbers that I came up with when it comes to a movie review score. But the biggest thing that I felt like could have been different, could have given us a very different feeling coming out of this movie, and a different trajectory for the Marvel Cinematic Universe would have been if you let some of these people die. Man, I would have liked to see some of these people die. And that is not me saying like, oh, the movie wasn't good because of this and that. No, this is just me saying that if I had my way, my heart felt as though it had been ripped out of my chest twice in this movie. And if I was like writing and directing, I would have said, let's leave them with that. Let's leave them with that feeling. And you can still go on to have a happy ending, but let's leave them with the feeling of Rocket, who we thought, I thought Rocket is done this movie. The marketing was pointing towards Rocket dying. And I was like, yes, kill him. And there was a moment where it looks like Rocket is gone. And then he just comes back. It was dramatic and it was heartfelt and it was cool to see him come back. But at the same time, I would have been fine thematically. Again, I would have been wrecked emotionally watching it like, oh man, Rocket gone. He's really gone. I would have been wrecked. But changing the trajectory of the MCU, kill Rocket, let him go, and move on. Like, you have other characters. Let Rocket die. That was one thing. It's not a complaint. It's just like, if I could have done things differently, maybe you let Rocket die and let that gut punch hit the audience and just sit with them for the rest of the film. You close it out in a different way because you can't really have the same closeout with Rocket dying, but you close it out in a different way and you let the audience feel that, happy, right off into the sunset ending, but no Rocket. That's one thing. Second thing that I would say, Peter Quill could have died and it would have been just as hard of a gut punch. And it's like, it was there for you. And when I say it was there for you with Peter Quill, I feel as though if you watch the movie, it ends with him leaving the team. He starts off the group saying, hey, I'm gonna go back to Earth. I'm gonna reconnect with my family if there's anyone there, blah, blah, blah. And you end on a post-credit scene with him sitting down with his grandpa eating cereal, and the words show the legendary Star-Lord will return, but the Guardians of the Galaxy don't seem like they will. And I guess you do all that to make sure, we leave the door open for Chris Pratt to come back as Star-Lord, but it's like, dog, you have a million characters. You don't need Chris Pratt. If Chris Pratt's Star-Lord died on the way out of the building, the way he was out of the building, like he's going back for the Zune, it's like that's true to his character. It's true to his character that he truly believes that he's gonna get out of every situation, and this time he just doesn't. My heart dropped. I was like, oh, they killing Star-Lord. Wow, this is bold. And then you see that finger come into the frame and it's like, y'all could have killed him. Y'all could have left him dead and it would have been good, but they didn't want to do that. And I get it. You want to leave that door open, but at the same time, if I was there and I want to, again, change the way people approach Marvel movies, like, hey, characters can die. This is the old rules is out. You know what I'm saying? The Infinity Stones, all that old way is done. We are going down a new path, and like everybody's not gonna make it. Period. I would have loved to see that, but they didn't do that. I'm not mad, but I saw a great opportunity to punch the audience in the stomach. People would have been talking for weeks about, man, they actually killed Star-Lord the same way Yondu died. Oh man, that was rough. I think they missed a chance to really generate a lot of conversation and really just shock the audience, but that's fine. Besides from that though, talking about the movie was excellent. The movie was excellent. One of the biggest things, and I'm gonna do the same self-referential thing that I did with the other video when I talked non-spoilers. People talk so much about the MCU and how, you know, it's so jokey post-Endgame and they're doing too much jokes. Thor Love and Thunder is the one that comes to mind. It's on the tips of people's tongue, talking about like the jokes and stuff, and it's too jokey, and they got the kids with the little rabbits. This movie has those same elements. All their movies have those same elements. The difference is with Guardians 3, the jokes hit. When you get the good dog, bad dog joke, and it just keeps coming back up. They wrote that thing for a good portion of the movie, but it was funny every time it hit. And because it was funny every time it hit, you're not gonna hear the same amount of complaints. You have the interactions with all the team. All that stuff is always funny. It is what the Guardians is. You have Mantis, you have Drax, you have Star-Lord, you have Nebula. Lots of funny interactions. You get the F-bomb.
Push the button. It looks like you're pushing the keyhole.
The what?
There's a button under the handle. Press that in.
Okay. Now what?
Open the fucking door.
That is a stupid design.
Very unexpected, very funny moment. Like, it was very cool. All the jokes hit, but it's like, it's very true to what the Guardians do. And they do it better than other properties have done it. And that's just what it is. It's not that MCU is changing anything or they chose to mix things up here. Like, nah, this is very much a Guardians movie, but the emotional weight makes it feel way more impactful than all the other stuff that we've seen. Even Black Panther 2, which they attempted some humor in there and it felt off because of the weight of Chadwick dying, and then further in the film you get the death of the Queen. It's like, oh man, it's a lot of funerals in this. I don't like the jokes in this. That movie kind of left people in a sour place as well. I think people are hesitant to criticize that film because of the death of Chadwick and knowing how difficult production was with it. And I also kind of feel the same way. Like, it was a cool film, but it's not one that I want to like watch again because I don't want to relive that opening scene again. But all those things are factors, and each one of the movies that have come out since Endgame has some level of caveat to it. The only one that I can look at and say doesn't really have many things that people can pick on or point to as problems would be Shang-Chi, or Shang-Chi as it's properly pronounced. That movie is the one that I feel like is the one that gets overshadowed. One, because it's the introduction of a character and a whole situation that we've never come back to and hasn't been referenced at all since its debut. But this one is the one that's being heralded as the best, and is being heralded that way deservedly so. There was so much that was good, and let's get off of the comedy and the way the comedy hit, because that was kind of the thought that I was kind of tracking as talking about the other films. The other thing that makes it so much better than the other films is the emotional weight. Let's talk about Rocket in that backstory. And I also want to mix in at this point, talk about the family dynamic of it. Like, yo, some of this stuff is scary. The fact that you have a rabbit with like spider legs coming out of it, you got the walrus with his eyes pinned open, you got the otter with no arms, but like mechanical arms. Everything that we saw during Rocket's origin and all his flashbacks, that stuff was slightly grotesque, slightly nightmare-inducing for a small child. The way the characters were portrayed though, for an adult, and you're watching it and you're being engaged by it, I can't imagine a person that watches all those scenes unfold and doesn't feel something when the otter gets shot, when Lila gets shot. It hurt. It hurt. Watching Rocket stand up there and scream in agony, it hurt. It really hurt. And I can't imagine the heartless monster that would watch all that stuff unfold and say, ah man, this is trash. This isn't good at all. Like, no. Even though you're watching CGI characters, even though you're watching a raccoon and an otter, two little rodent creatures hugging, it's like, this stuff hits emotionally because we know why Rocket has done so much to hide his past. Now we know why he never would talk about it, why he takes his connection to Groot and Peter and his place in the Guardians so seriously. It's like all that stuff now makes so much more sense. And that level of connection to a film doesn't really exist outside of Endgame. Like Endgame was the last time you felt that connected to the characters on screen. Not just because they've had a bunch of movies and a bunch of time on screen, but because you get the answers to questions that you may have thought of for years if you've been tracking this cinematic universe. Now, I must say, if a person is coming in cold and watching this, yeah, it's still gonna hit because these animals are portrayed as so cute and so harmless, and they are so gentle with the voice acting. Great job, great casting on all those characters. They come across as so innocent and meek and nice. But I can imagine it hits quite a bit less significantly if you are a person who's coming in cold and you don't have any real connection to the MCU. There's so much that I could probably sit here and talk about, so I'm gonna try to think about maybe 3 more things that we can talk about in specific. One of the coolest parts about this movie, again, something that makes it better than Volume 2 and better than the original in this instance, is that each character has a moment to kind of display where they were, where they are, where they're going. I liked it so much to see Drax, and like, yes, he's always gonna be the silly, dumb character, but then at the same time, his strength is on display. At the same time, his gift to deal with children that you never really see in any of the other films, but you see it on display here. It shows its value. And again, he's crowned at the end as the dad of the group and how he was born to be that, not a destroyer. Very cool stuff. You have Nebula like being angry and processing her anger and all the things that happened to her, but then at the same time embracing the fact that I need to do and build a better community than what I grew up in, and that's the place that I'm going to be. You have Mantis, who does so much more in this movie than she's ever done in any of the other things that she's been a part of. But even her, she has moments to shine where she like hypnotizes or kind of soothes the big creatures toward the end in the 3rd act, and then kind of rides off into the sunset with them, going on a journey of self-discovery, because she explained it very well. Like, I've never really had time to myself. I've always been with this person or with that person or doing this or doing that. And that was very cool to see her character grow to that point. Peter accepts the fact that Gamora is gone. Like, he's not gonna get that relationship back, but at the same time, he has to go back to Earth and like appreciate and gravitate towards the relationships that he still did have. So again, every character had their moment here. Everybody had their time to shine. That was on full display. That's a very cool thing. Moving from that into the second very cool thing about this film, I guess I'll call it cinematography, but it's just the way that the movie is shot. You know, some people go into these Marvel movies and they look at them as like, oh, it's just cheap comic book stuff. But some of these scenes are so impressive. The action on display, again, it's computer generated. A lot of it is just green screen stuff that's happening, but it's happening so well with the music that James Gunn chooses, with the choreography of the fights and the camera work. There's a hallway scene specifically in the 3rd act. That hallway scene is probably one of the most impressive things that I've seen in all of the MCU. The fact that this camera is tracking, and I focused really hard on the tracking of it, it doesn't appear to cut. Now, there are places where they can stop the action, reset, keep going. But man, you can't tell that they stopped. It looks seamless, and they decimate an army of characters. And that stuff, again, it elevates the film to be better than anything else in that Guardians franchise. I think the other thing that makes this so cool is just the plot. It's not this big like multiverse hopping story. It's not this big connected to a whole bunch of other things style of a film. The connectivity of this movie to the rest of the MCU is almost null and void. Like, this is very much a standalone movie. That in itself was refreshing, along with the fact that you don't have to watch this and watch 2 or 3 other things. If you saw the Christmas special, I think that's all you really needed between Volume 2 and where we end up right now. And it's really cool to see a movie that stands alone amongst all these other films, and the connection to Kang or the connection to Secret Wars or what Spider-Man did or what Thor was doing, all that stuff is out of your mind. You get to just journey with these characters, and that made it refreshing compared to a lot of the other stuff that we've been getting from the MCU. And it's not a complaint about the connectivity. I think that the connectivity is cool at times, but it's not forced here, and because of that, it's not present here, and it's still all good. I really enjoyed what they ended up giving us. Dislikes. Do I have any real dislikes? Not really. I really don't. The only thing that I would say is that I feel like the movie is long, and the movie is long because they wanted to include little nuggets, like the whole Nathan Fillion character and all his moments can be cut. I'm not saying that I didn't like them. They were cool, but they could have been cut. I feel like they made the movie an extra 6-7 minutes. And what's 6-7 minutes when the movie's 2.5 hours? Like, that's not that big. There are things though, when I think about it, you probably could slim this movie down just a little bit and get it closer to like maybe 2:15. And the only reason I bring it up is because I felt it. Like, as I was watching the movie, I was in the third act and I'm like, yo, how much more? Because they've done so much and we've been here so long. And we've gone back to the well on some things so many times, and it's like, are we going to keep doing this? How long are we going to do this? So the pacing maybe is a little too long, but that's the only real critique. It felt perfect is really how I feel like, and how I felt walking out. And it's been 24 hours and I still kind of feel that way. Like, it was basically a perfect send off for these characters. But the only thing that I would have changed is not even a dislike. It's just the fact that, hey, you can let these characters die. You don't need to bring Star-Lord back. You could have killed him. Boy, that would have hurt if they'd have killed him right there. But it would have been so good to do it then. Those are my thoughts on the movie, y'all. That's all I have to say about it. Let me know what you thought about the movie. Do you think that Peter Quill should have died? Do you think that Rocket should have died? What would you have changed about the movie? Because I feel like it was relatively perfect. It didn't really have many things to complain about, but I would love to know if you have any complaints about it in the comment section. So please jump down there. Let me know your thoughts and we can have a little dialogue. That's all I have for this here video though. Enjoy yourself, guard your heart, and go watch something good.